Okay, today we're going to be talking about our point-slope form. We've worked with the point-intercept form the other day on how to graph our linear functions and our proportions, and also how to write equations in that point-intercept form. Well, this is a different form. Point-intercept form use the slope and where that line crossed the y-axis. Point-slope form is using the slope, but it's using a point that is on the line, not where it crosses that y-axis. So the beginning part, I'm going to go ahead and I've written it all out for you. We're going to look at it in class. And it basically is coming up and proving what that formula is. And that formula, you can go ahead and see if I have 2 points on my line and one is xy and the other one is x1, y1, then I'm going to go ahead and plug in those steps and you can go ahead and look at it yourself. But this right here is my point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m, which is our slope, times x minus x1, where x1 and y1 are points on the line, and that m is the slope of that line. So if I go ahead and tell you that I have a slope of 5, and I know 0.42 is on my line, and I ask you to write an equation of that line, you're going to use that formula that we just showed. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, and you will plug in exactly what you see here. That 0.42, x is my 4, I'm putting that right here. That y was 2, that goes for my y1. And of course, my slope, I said was 5, that's where that 5 is coming into play. So my actual formula for the line is y minus 2 equals 5 times x minus 4. And that shows me what the slope is, what my x is of the ordered pair, and what the y is of my ordered pair. So the point xy is on my line with the slope of 5. And just like I told you, the difference between that point-slope form and the slope-intercept form is the fact that y equals mx plus b, that slope-intercept form, that uses the slope and where it crosses the y-axis. The point-slope form, which is right here, includes a slope, but a point that's actually on the line. So let's see how we can actually write equations if I know a point and I know the slope. So again, I've got that nice formula right here for me, and all we're doing is replacing the highlighted portions. We're replacing the x1 and the y1 with our point that's given, and the m with the slope. So for numbers 1 through 4, I kind of already highlighted it and did it for you. But let's go ahead and look at number 5. Number 5, again, we're using that formula y, so that's how it's always going to start, minus, and then look at the y in your point. My y is 4, so 4 is going right here. Equals, what is my slope? My slope is -1, so it's going to be -1. And then times x minus, now what is my x in my point? It's 6. And that's my equation. So let's try that again. For number 6, y minus, now what is my y in my point? 2. Equals, what is my slope? 3.5. Times x minus, Now, what is my x and my point? 2. And there's my equation. So let's go ahead and look at actually pulling information. If I give you the equation, can you tell me what a point is on the line and what the slope is? Again, it's in that form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So again, we're going to replace and find out, not replace, but find out what m is. Well, in this problem, m is this -4. So m, my slope, is -4. Now, what about the point that's on my line? Well, let's see. I know ordered pairs are in the form x and y. Well, what is the x? The x is right here, except it's supposed to be minus x. And notice I have a positive in front of it, which means it's the opposite of that. So I have to go ahead and put my x is not 4. My x is actually -4 because of this positive here. Remember, it's supposed to be a negative or a subtraction sign. Now let's go ahead and look at what the y would be. The y has to be minus y1. Well, I got minus, that means my y is 1. And there's my point. Try it again. Looking at number 10. Easy part. Well, what's the slope? It's right there for us. 0.7. Now let's come up with one of the points in the form xy. Well, x minus x1 would be 2.4. And in the front, y minus y1, but again, be careful, there's a positive here. That means it's going to be the opposite, which is -1.8. And that's the point that's on the line. They can even give us word problems and try to have us write it. And if you see anything with a grade or an uphill grade, that's really the slope. They give it to me as a percent, and we don't really deal with the percents when we talk about slope, but we can deal with decimals and fractions. So 4% is 0.04. There's my slope. If I want it as a fraction, rise over run, it would be 1/25. It's the same thing, and I don't care which way you give it to me. Now, when I look at it, x is 0 with an elevation. That's your y value of 2,225 feet. So they're giving you the point in a word problem of 0, 2,225. So when they ask you to write the equation, y minus y1, 2,225, equals the slope, which you told me, 0.04, times x minus x1. Well, x1 is 0. So I could leave it like that, or, quite honestly, if that is multiplied by 0, it's the same thing as not even being there. So I could write it like this. Either way, I don't care if you have that minus 0 or if you leave it off if you wanted to simplify that a little bit. So, what would be the highway's elevation? A mile from its beginning? Well, my slope is 1/25. How many feet are actually in a mile? That's right, 5,280 feet. That is 1 mile. But the slope is 1/25. So 1 out of every 25, so let's divide that by 25. And when you do that, that should give you 211.2. then add that to the elevation they give you, which means 2,225 feet plus that 211.2 means I've got 2,436.2 feet. Now, last thing I want to look at is how do I graph it if I have the equation? Well, let's look at what I've known. I know my slope is 2. I know there's a 0.25 on my line. Let's write that equation. Y minus y1, which is 5, equals m, the slope, times x minus x1, which is 2. There's my equation. Now, let's graph that point. First thing I'm going to start with is I always start with the point on the line first. So that 0.25, I'm going to graph that over 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 5. Now I've got to worry about the slope. The slope is the rise over the run. So remember, that rise, if my slope is 2, that means 2 over 1. Go up 2 over 1. Well, that's kind of off my graph, up 2 over 1. So I know my 1 point's going to be here. So if I want to go down, I could actually do the opposite. So go down 2 and go left 1. You can even do it again. Go down 2 and left 1. Do the opposite if you want to go the other direction. From there, I've got enough points. I'm just going to go ahead and put a line through those points, put arrowheads on both sides, and I have the graph of this equation. Make sure you do write down some questions. We will cover it. I know sometimes this can get a little difficult with this new information, but trust me, we will go at a slower pace in class. So again, write down your questions and I'll